Is the speaker working? Sounds louder to me. Okay, great. My name is Lorraine Van Keckricks. I am a Sacramento County Master Gardener, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Harvest Day 2023. We are so glad to be back. I hope you're going to enjoy the speakers, our demonstration gardens, all of the Master Gardeners here to answer your questions, meeting reps from other garden groups in the educational table area, and all our garden vendors. And we got great food vendors this year. We have two speakers today, Fred Hoffman and Debbie Flower, talking about tips for saving time, money, and water in the garden. Things we all need to know about given our limited time and budgets and California's changing climates. Fred Hoffman is a Sacramento County Master Gardener, also known as Farmer Fred, wearing his badge today. He produces and hosts the podcast Garden Basics with Farmer Fred, which can be found wherever you get your podcasts or at gardenbasics.net. And our second speaker is Debbie Flower, a horticulture professor who is currently retired, or as Fred likes to call her, America's favorite retired college horticulture professor.
You have another page?
Yeah. Debbie Flower worked many years in many aspects of horticulture, including 25 years as a horticulture professor at Sacramento area community colleges. Now she's enjoying her own garden, and I think she enjoys being a frequent guest on the podcast Garden Basics with Farmer Fred. So take it away.
Maybe not.
I'm still doing it, Fred. I'm still showing up. That says something.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
We beat the heat. Isn't that nice? Yay. It's so good to have a somewhat cool morning to do this. And there are going to be three speakers here. There will be later on. There's going to be two more talks. After we're done here, we're going to hold all questions until the end because we have to move out of here to make room for the next speaker. So if you have questions, hold them to the very end, and we'll be over at that white tent over there to answer your questions. So we'll do it that way because we get sidetracked a lot into scenic bypasses, and it's very possible that it's going to happen again. We are here theoretically to talk about saving time, money, and water in your garden. We'll call it summer garden tips.
All right.
All right.
I'll go with that.
Good. Debbie Flower, of course, America's favorite retired college horticultural professor. I've learned amazing amounts of gardening information and horticulture information in the 3 years that she's been sitting in on the podcast. It's almost like a private education. But I've discovered the secret. What you need to do is listen to the podcast episode more than once. It's amazing what you can learn again by listening to it twice or three times. And every week, I learn something new. For instance, she told us last week that soil that you have in your garden is basically mostly rocks and air.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit of organic matter.
Yeah,
2%, 2 to 3%. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
that's true.
But the rocks would be sand, silt, and clay.
That's right.
So,
based on their size.
Yeah.
Sand being the biggest, silt medium, and clay the smallest.
Okay. But I'd never realized that organic matter was such a small percentage.
Yes.
Of
very small
what
percent.
it is. But that brings us to container gardening. And we all like to do container gardening. And you don't, we've talked about this on the program too, is as far as why you don't want to use your garden soil in a container because, well, you tell them.
Hi. He stopped talking, so I can talk now. Isn't this a wonderful event? I just have to say, it's all put on by volunteers, completely put on by volunteers. Heads up to them. Yeah.
Hey, we're volunteering too.
We are, yes.
Yeah. But why don't you want to use garden soil in a container?
Garden soil in a container has a couple of problems. The number one problem is poor drainage. because it consists of sand, silt, and clay, particles of different sizes, they fit together too tightly. So where the sand will make big pores, but then the clay can get into those big pores and clog them up. And so you don't get good drainage. Water in soil doesn't just drop through the air like we see water coming out of our faucet in our sink, or we see the rain coming down. The water in soil travels around the edges of all those sand, silt, clay, and a little bit of organic particles. The closer those particles are to each other, the less space there is for that water to travel, and it takes much less ability to go through that soil. So we want to use bigger particles. And anything you buy in a container has been grown in soilless mix. You'll find people who will say, I like to put some soil in because it adds some life to the soil. That's okay, but sometimes that life needs to be only a little bit. I'd say less than 20% if you want to do that. I don't do it. I don't advocate it, but some people really want to do it. But it has to be sterilized. They think it adds life, but some of that life it adds is bad life. There's good fungus and bad fungus. There's good bacteria and bad bacteria. There's good seeds and bad seeds, meaning weed seeds and the seeds you want to grow. And you can introduce all of those bad things in by adding any of the soil out of your garden. So we don't do it. In production, where money counts in a commercial greenhouse, you can't have failure due to those bad diseases getting around or weeds in your greenhouse. So we use soil-less mix. And soil-less mix is basically 3 parts. You look up any recipe, you break it down. The Cornell University recipe is probably the most commonly used as a basis. It's 3 parts. It's organic matter is 1 part. So that can be peat moss. Where I worked in Oregon, it was shredded wood. It can be compost. It can be coir, which is Coconut, yeah, the stuff outside of a coconut. Comes in pellets, apparently. I don't use coir much. We did when I was teaching, and it was a pain in the butt because you have to soak it for 24 hours before. So you have to, and then we only use part of it, and then we have this bucket of soaking coir, and now what are we going to do with that? So it became sort of a pain in the butt. So anything that's organic, 1/3 that, 1 part. I always recognize this. If you've ever been in the hospital, you've seen these. Okay? I use this as my part. 1 part of, I actually buy container media in a bag because it's mostly organic matter. 1 part of that into this is a kitty litter box. Okay? This is my little one. I have a big one too.
We're saving money here.
Yeah. I buy regular stuff. Don't need anything special. This could be a cottage cheese container or a salsa container or something like that. But it's a part that you're using it to measure. So 1 part of that organic matter, 1 part of, I like pumice, comes in this bag. It's lava rock. If you buy some, I'll pass it around. Well, everybody can't see it from here.
All right. But pumice is small.
The pumice comes in sizes,
yeah.
And this is horticultural pumice, and so it is a certain size. Pumice is good for holding moisture, but also creating open spaces in your media. And so I would do 1 part of pumice, put that in, and then perlite is an option. I don't have any perlite with me. Perlite is heated and expanded rock. It's white. And the reason I don't like it, I have some around for very special situations, but it's very, very dusty. To the point where I've inhaled it and coughed for days afterwards. It's not just I have to get it out of my system right now. It goes on and on. The dust is really irritating. And so I would have students water it down when we worked with it. But that didn't work well enough. So I tried to get away from it. So I use vermiculite, which is a different expanded rock. This it's expanded mica. Mine is wet. It holds moisture as well. So we've got 1 part of the organic matter, 1 part of the pumice, 1 part of the vermiculite. I could use sand. I could use, instead of any of these, what else would you use? The perlite we talked about. And mix that together. And that's a good planting mix. You're going to need some nutrition at some point, but that's a good basic planting mix.
I've always been intrigued by what you see on a label of potting mix. If you go to any nursery or hardware store and you see bags of potting soil, potting mix, raised bed mix, and you look at the ingredients, and one of the lead ingredients in most of those is forest byproducts.
Right.
What the heck is forest byproducts?
Well, that takes me back to when I worked at an ag experiment station in outside of Portland, Oregon. It's wood products that have been chopped up. and we grew, that was our organic component for our mix, but we used it only as an organic component. And then we added the other rock products to it. And the rock products open that up, allow for good drainage, allow places for roots to grow.
It's hot.
It is.
The week before last, on a 100-degree day, I took my soil thermometer out to my potted roses, and I'm doing a rose test where I'm growing the same variety of rose in different style of pots. There's
cool.
a black plastic pot, there's a ceramic pot, there's a fiber pot, and then there's a fabric pot, smart pots, as if you would not think I wouldn't use a smart pot. Of course I would. And I stuck my soil thermometer in each of those when the temperature in the air was exactly 100 degrees. The smart pot had soil temperature of 80 degrees.
That's great.
That's great. That's a perfect temperature for growing plants.
Mm-hmm.
In the black plastic pot, the temperature was 110 degrees.
Oop, there go your roots.
There go the roots is right. University of Kentucky did a study that discovered that when temperatures in the soil get over 104, root damage can occur. When it gets over 110, roots start dying. And when your roots die, the plant dies. Mm-hmm. And you're looking at the top and you see the leaves drooping, so you think, oh, I better add water. Well, actually, water on a hot day is a good idea for soil. It'll bring down the temperature a little bit, but it only takes, 30 minutes of high temperatures to start killing off roots.
Right.
And if that black pot is in the full sun all day long, that plant is a goner because you've killed off most of the feeder roots.
So, Fred, do you have any cash pot to put around that black plastic pot?
I don't have any cash. Explain
cash
that. Okay. Now, this will save you time and money because your plant's going to live and you won't have to go back to the nursery to buy another plant.
The cache pot, it's spelled C-A-C-H-E. I guess it's French. Sounds like it, the spelling. It's the pretty pot. I didn't bring the prettiest because I didn't want to break them, but I brought examples of things you could use as a cache pot. First of all, I would never grow anything outdoors in a pot this small. You're going to go big in outdoor pots. And it becomes harder and harder and more expensive to find something to a cache pot to fit a number 5, which is maybe a foot across, or a 15, which is about 15 to 18 inches across. Those are big pots and equally as tall. So to find something, what you want is a cache pot, a pot to put the grow pot in. And you'd ideally like some space. Sorry, I didn't wash them either. You'd ideally like some space between your grow pot and your cache pot. And that produces an insulative layer of air. Stops the sun from hitting the grow pot itself.
I would say we're going to talk about drainage here.
Yeah, that one doesn't have any.
This cache pot does not have drainage. And if you use a bigger pot like this to protect a smaller pot on a hot day, where's the water going to go? It's just going to sit in the bottom. And if it's sitting in the bottom, the roots are going to drown.
Right. So I've taken, I reuse everything I can think of, everything I find. So, you get styrofoam, stuff packed in styrofoam, when it comes in a box. And I've broken those up, put them in a Ziploc bag, and then put that underneath this to raise this pot off the bottom. Then the water can come out the holes and be under the pot, not in it. But you still have to check it because you could have put a whole lot of water in there and it could sit there for days and days and days and you could still rot your plant. So you always have to be looking.
The nice thing about using a larger pot as well is when you put a much larger pot around the smaller pot, you've got all this airspace between the bigger pot and the smaller part, and you can insulate that inside pot even more by putting mulch between the large pot and the small pot. And that's going to bring the temperature down of the soil even more. People should have a soil thermometer. You should get one and use it. You'd be surprised. The other thing people should get to save time and money and water in the garden is get a soil moisture meter. Because when you're hot, your plant isn't necessarily hot in the soil at 8 inches down. So it's always a good habit to get into before you turn on your irrigation in the summertime or water plants by hand. Stick that moisture meter into the ground and just see how moist it is. And you'd be surprised at how moist it might be at the root level, 8 inches down. It's so moist that you may not even have to water. You can use that water to go take a shower to cool off.
But you have to calibrate your moisture meter because the moisture meter, how it works is based on really electricity and conduction of electrons through ions. Okay, I won't go there. How much fertilizer you have in the media.
Oh.
And so if you put a moisture meter in distilled water, it will read dry. So you need to check your pot when it's full of dry media and see where the moisture meter reads, so that when you then put moisture in it, you can see where it changes to. Sometimes it'll read very high if you have too much fertilizer in there.
I thought you brought a shade cloth with you. Oh, you got it right there.
Right.
Good for you. All right. Hey, you got to talk about your other tips for protecting the outside of a pot.
Right. So if you have that 15, that big 18-inch across, 18-inch tall black container full of media and a plant, it's difficult to find the cache pot that's bigger and affordable to put around it. So there are other options. One is, this is floating row cover, the kind you put on to protect the plant from flying insects. It's many layers, but I just used clothespins, which I got at the dollar store, and wrapped it around the container. And that's enough to stop the sun from hitting it. With the students, they were doing 15-gallon pots. They got to design it and grow stuff in it, and it was in full sun. We used spray paint. We took those big 15 pots and put them out on the grass. They were cleaned down so that they didn't have dirt on them. And then they spray painted. I got them yellow and gold and silver and white and pink, light colors, and they could make any design they wanted. The point was to lighten up the outside of that container. And it worked. Everybody's went, and everything grew just fine. So that's another way.
Don't forget aluminum foil.
Right. I didn't bring aluminum foil. Anybody know what aluminum foil is?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You can wrap that around. It's kind of obnoxious. You wrap it around a pot. It's going to be, I see something. Oh, yeah. It's the microphone flashing light around in the audience. It's my earrings. My earrings are trowels and garden tools. My husband gave them to me. A pot with aluminum foil on it is going to do that, but it's also going to protect the roots of your plant.
It'll also signal the UFOs where to land as well. So, take me away from all this, please. This row cover is also known as shade cloth. It can be. And shade cloth is also a great idea for protecting your in-ground plants from excessive heat. How many of you have sunburned tomatoes or peppers? Yeah. Well, a lot of that is because maybe you pruned the plant away and you took away some of the leaf cover so the fruit wasn't protected, or it's facing due south or due west and the fruit is exposed and you get that sunburn.
Or you were out of town and it got really hot and your irrigation died.
Well,
the battery died in your irrigation timer.
Who did that happen to? All right. But you can buy shade cloth in different thicknesses to protect your plants. And usually for shade cloth, if you choose a 30% shade cloth or a 40%, that's good for your outdoor full sun vegetables. If you go up to 50% or 60% shade cloth, that's good for your shade-loving plants. If you have 80%, that's good for you because it could be like that. Now, the difference between using a shade cloth and a tarp or an umbrella is shade cloth allows air and water to pass through, and also eliminating the arrival of insects, too.
See how thin it is?
This is very thin. This would be, and in the wintertime, you could use it as a very thin frost cloth for about 2 degrees of protection. No, it works. It does. So it has double duty. You can use the shade cloth as a shade or as frost protection.
Or as insect protection.
Insect protection, too. That's the other tip if you want to save time, money, and water in the garden. If you don't want to buy insecticides, this is what we call integrated pest management. This is a physical control that keeps out aphids and whiteflies if you just drape it loosely over your plants to allow the plants to grow.
And it lasts a while. This has been used over and over and over again. So it's a one-time investment. Last time I was here at the garden, the blueberries were under 50% shade cloth, if you want to see what that looks like.
Yeah, you're going to find all sorts of great shade cloth there. You can buy shade cloth at just about any good nursery or online. It depends if you need yards and yards and yards of it, then you probably would be
go to a greenhouse.
To the internet.
Go to a greenhouse supply.
Right.
Charlie's,
yeah,
supply.
Charlie's would have it. There's a place down in Fresno too.
Examples. You have it on your website, right? The examples of the different densities of shade cloth.
Protection from sun can be multiplied in several different ways. And the one basic thing we didn't talk about, if you have container plants, is move them to the north side of the house. Move them to the shade. And you like to use rollers.
Yeah, I have a whole collection. It's not my goal to have a whole collection of plants in pots outside my kitchen door, but they never seem to go away. So I've succumbed to the fact that they're going to be there, and I try to get these are a little expensive. I buy a couple at a time, but rollers for underneath them. I don't like the solid ones. I like the ones that have allow water to drain out, and they're on rollers. The bigger the pot, the harder it is to find one that works well. And Fred's suggestion was furniture dollies.
Right.
Or you can make your own if you're handy with some wood and you can buy wheels and put them in. That way, having them on wheels, I can put them in the sun conditions I want them to be in, and I can move them and clean all the crap that collects underneath, primarily spider webs and leaves, periodically, and then put them back. I can rearrange them if I so choose, and having them close together helps one plant shade another plant. Also, the water lost out the leaves of one plant is there available for another plant to slow down its loss of water. So it increases the humidity around the whole collection of plants.
I think we should move to the piece de resistance of this presentation.
Okay.
For saving money, and that's reusing old potting soil. How many of you have old pots scattered around behind the garage, behind the greenhouse, wherever, and they still got the old soil in it? There's no plant in it, but there's soil in it. Did you know you can use that soil again? But how?
It's pretty easy.
Okay.
First, I go back to my trusty kitty litter box, bring the pot with soil, dump it out. There's going to be roots and stems and old parts of the old plant. So I get those out, put them in my green waste can. What happens to media over time is that the organic component breaks down, just like a compost pile. Organisms get in there, chew it up, it gets to be smaller and smaller and smaller. And the water movement through that media gets worse and worse and worse. And in fact, it'll shrink from the sides of the container, and you'll think you've watered that plant really well because it's water coming out the bottom. But what the water's actually doing is traveling across the top, down the sides and out the holes. And if you were to put that moisture meter inside the media itself, it's dry. Often that's the reason plants die. Either they're not getting any water because it's going down and around, or they're sitting in water, which is a way to rehydrate a plant that isn't absorbing water from the top, but it gets too wet and it can't drain because the pore sizes have disappeared. So if you're using what's right out of the bag that you buy for container media, it's primarily organic matter. There's a few pieces of some rock product in it, but it's primarily organic matter. So that has broken down, and that's what you have now in your kitty litter box. And so you're going to consider that your organic component. So I measure it with my trusty measurer, 1, 2, and then I'll add pumice, vermiculite, the same amount, 1, 2 pumice, 1, 2 vermiculite, mix it all together and reuse it.
Well, wait a minute here.
Yeah.
I bet it needs water.
Yes, I know not everyone who instructs in horticulture advocates for this, but I always wet the media before I put it in the container. Couple of reasons. One, the container you're going to grow in has drain holes. If the media is moist, it will not fall out the drain holes when you put it in. Number 2 is if the container is deep, and this is it's not a very big container, but it's deep enough. You put dry media in here and water it, it may never get wet, because if a lot of container media contains hydrophobic particles. Peat moss is hydrophobic, meaning it will not absorb water readily. Some wood products are hydrophobic, and most everything you buy in bags is wood products. And so you have to manipulate it with your hands to get it wet. Once it's wet, if it doesn't dry out totally, it will continue to be able to be re-wet. So I wet it first in my kitty litter box, and then I put it into my containers.
And the kitty litter box has no drain holes, so it's sitting there for hours in water, And then you can get to the fun part of grabbing a handful of that wet soil and putting it into a pot with holes and let it drain out.
Then you have to go wash your hair to clean your fingernails. It's all a process, you know?
Dirty fingernails for a gardener is a badge of honor. Let's face it. Yeah.
Dirty and broken.
Can we do a little scenic bypass here?
Of course. We're best at that.
Watering containers. A lot of people don't water containers enough. They go down their row of containers with their hose, and maybe it's hopefully on a shower setting, and it's a little bit here,
or
a
they
little
go
bit
like
here.
This.
Yeah, go like that.
I've seen students do that.
Do that sometime when your soil needs water, and then dig down. Go down 4 inches or 6 inches, and you'll be amazed that that water level has only penetrated maybe an inch or two. And everything below that is dry. The tip I have and the tip we use is when you're watering container plants, water that container until the water flows out the bottom. If it flows out immediately, that means it's too dry, that the soil ball has contracted and the water's rolling down the sides. If it never comes out, you got a bigger problem. You've got a container with either clogged drainage or no drainage.
And when you do fill a container with new media, you want 1/2 inch or 1 inch of what's called headroom. So space between the top of your media and the top of the container. And that gives you space to fill up with water. The media is so well drained that if you just water in one place, it'll only get wet in one carrot-shaped wetting pattern. So if you want the whole thing wet, you need the whole top wet. And you do that by having space up on top of the media to fill up with water to allow the whole thing to get wet.
Let's make Debbie mad. So what would you put in the bottom of that container?
Nothing!
Okay, all right.
There are lots of, there's one instance where I would put something in the bottom of the container, and that's if I got really inspired, I guess, and bought one of those tall containers like this tall, and I'm going to grow something in it. Well, feeder roots are only in the top 30 inches, 36 most, of any soil. Out in the field, roots that go deeper, everything you learn in horticulture, there are exceptions. So there are exceptions. But if I don't have the money, the media to fill the container, I can get 30 inches deep. I've got enough space to the side for that plant to survive. Then I might put something in the bottom. And this I learned from professional interior scapers. Okay. So the people who do the pots in the mall and the lawyer's office and the bank and wherever else. Okay. I'm friends with a couple of them. Milk jugs with the lids on in the bottom just to fill up space. That's the only time if this was a really huge container. And that's what they're dealing with. Look at those pots when you go to the mall next time, if you ever do that. You'll see that those containers are really, really big and really deep in some cases. And so to save money, they use the milk jugs in the bottom.
But they're also swapping out those plants on a regular basis, too.
Yes, seasonally often.
Yeah. So when you do it at home, though, you're creating a whole host of problems if you decide, and heavens knows, we've heard for years, put some pot shards in the bottom of the container, put some gravel in the bottom of the container, put some styrofoam in the bottom of the container.
It'll improve drainage. No, water moves down through the media. I always think of it as music. I don't know if that works for anybody else. Attached to the sides of the particles and moves down through the texture, whatever texture your media is. When it comes to a drastic change in texture, it stops. And then the water builds up above that. And so the media becomes totally saturated with water, and there's nothing in the styrofoam peanuts, the rocks, the pot shards, whatever they are below that. Next drop of water you put in will push water from the top down into that lower level, but it doesn't naturally flow there. It's very counterintuitive. Engineers don't even understand it. My husband, a hydrologist, worked with engineers on ponds that were used to dry out the crap that came out of coal-burning smokestacks. And they thought they were doing really, really well because they weren't getting any moisture in the sand below, the soil below these concrete containers. It wasn't working. They had a crack in the concrete container. The media was going out and sticking to the concrete container. And so they were actually ultimately polluting the area.
I always like to think of flowing water as being on the freeway. There's no problems. You're going down 80 or 50, 65 miles an hour. Everything's fine. All of a sudden, you see taillights ahead. And all of a sudden, everything's backing up and you're down to 20, 30 miles an hour. And you wonder, okay, where's the accident? What's going on? Turns out, when you pass it, it was just a Tesla on fire on the side of the road. So it was nothing. It was off to the side. It wasn't blocking the lanes or anything, but people slow down. Water slows down when it sees that Tesla on fire in the bottom of the pot, which could be styrofoam. By the way, you know those lighter pots that look like really fancy clay pots, but are plastic, and they can be rather tall? Don't ever make the mistake of filling that half full of styrofoam and then planting maybe a tree on top, because the first 15-mile-an-hour wind that comes along, the whole thing falls over. So there are a lot of good reasons for not using it.
Needs some weight, yeah.
Yeah, you do that. How about saving seeds?
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Let me set it up first. I forgot to set it up. How many of you are familiar with jalapeno gate? Jalapeno gate, I think, hit most nurseries in the area where the jalapeno plants they were selling turned out not to be possibly jalapeno plants. They were a sweet yellow banana. But even more, and if you're growing two other sweet peppers, if you're growing the chocolate beauty or the purple beauty, those could turn out to be jalapenos, which I think is more of a shock to the system than getting a sweet jalapeno. So a lot of people who are responding to jalapeno gate are saying because of the seed industry consolidating and a lot of the seed that is being grown for plants or that you're getting as a home gardener may be coming out of only 4 major industries in the entire world, there's a bigger chance for mix-ups in the future. And the way around that is to save your own seed. How do you save your own seed? What seed should you save? What seed should you not save? What seed would not you save? You
would not save the seed from a plant that is called a hybrid or an F1. It would say it on the package. If you're not unsure, then you would Google the name, the cultivar. So it wouldn't just be Google tomato, it would be Google tomato early girl, which I think is not a hybrid. Tastily, that's one that is a hybrid. You can buy it in your grocery store and I can grow it. It's not great to grow here. It doesn't like the heat. But if I save the seeds from my Tastily tomato, I'm going to get 1/4 of the plants I grow from that will be taste like Tastylies. The other 3/4 will look like the parents of Tastily, and they'll have potentially different flavor, different sizes, maybe even different colors. If you want to do it for fun, great, but you don't know what you're going to get.
However, you could luck out, because in the case of Early Girl, which was introduced as a hybrid back in the 1950s or 1960s, has pretty much settled down. You could almost call Early Girl an heirloom at this point, because as long as that plant has a little bit of isolation, and not that much, maybe 5-6 feet of isolation, you could save the seeds of an Early Girl, an old hybrid that has... It takes about 7 or 8 years for a hybrid to settle down, if indeed they are using the seed of hybrids that they grew the year before. But when you see the letters F1 next to a seed packet, that means that is the first generation for that plant, and it's not going to come back true.
Right. It's going to come back as its parents. Another thing to be careful about is if you're saving your own seed, what parents did that seed have? Tomatoes are pretty much self-pollinating if temperatures are right, which means 86 degrees is the temperature to keep in mind for plants. All plants of all origin, above 86 degrees, all they're doing is keeping themselves cool. So why did I say that?
Because of cross-pollination?
Cross-pollination, right. So if they're above the 86 degrees or so, the tomato isn't doing much of anything. But if it's pollinated, and nights count, okay, temperatures at night counts, it's pollinated itself, which means that the boy parts and the girl parts grew at the correct rate to cross each other and touch each other inside the flower, and no pollinator was involved, then you're going to get it true to type. Something like a squash, a melon, very typically, I go out and check mine in the morning, see if they need to be pollinated, and I have found the bees sleeping in the male flowers. Okay,
lazy bees.
If you got the bees in there, then the pollen's coming from who knows where. And a melon can cross with a pumpkin, can cross with a squash. And what you get, if you save those seeds, what you grow next can be anything.
Yeah, we should point out, too, that it won't affect what you're growing that year. It's the seeds you save that'll come up slightly different. And the cucurbit family is a little iffy to be saving those seeds.
Right. Right. So if you want to produce your own and save your own, then you have to be in control of pollination. So you have to be out there very early in the morning when the flowers first open, kick the bees out, do the pollination yourself, and then bag the fruit so that no other pollen gets in there and changes what the offspring will be. As Fred said, the fruit produced that year will be the fruit of the plant. Okay? But the fruit produced by the offspring the seed in that fruit will produce the next generation, and that's where you're going to see the difference.
So the seeds you bought this year and planted of zucchini and melons, watermelons, cantaloupes, unless they've been affected by jalapeno gate, will not give you something different. It will be what that seed packet said it would be. But as we said before, there's exceptions to everything.
Right. There is in horticulture.
All right.
Yep.
All right. So let's say you've saved some seeds of, I don't know, carrots, maybe?
Carrots, okay. I let my carrot go to flower. I did do that because it's a good pollinator attractor.
Oh, that's the other thing to mention, too.
Yes.
Let some of your plants go to flower.
Yes.
That doesn't mean they're bad. That means, actually, you're in for a world of fun because you're going to attract beneficial insects to all those flowering onions or flowering herbs that you've planted.
Carrot, arugula, lettuce, chard.
And it's producing seed.
Right. So you have to let them dry and then get them out of their flower heads. And that's mostly irritating the flower and letting things fall out. And then you winnow them. I went to a Native Seed. Native Seed is the brand. Seed production facility in New Mexico once. They would not allow me to take any pictures. It was very simple, though. They'd have a table like this, a container not as deep as this, much shallower, full of the seed detritus from the flower, a fan here, and then they'd sit there and go like this.
Yeah.
That's it. And what would come up is the light parts from the flower, and that would blow away. And what would stay in the container is the seed. So you winnow out the seed. Must be dry. Put it in a container. I save my seeds. I keep trying to cover this up because seeds in plastic in the sun get fried really fast. But these are commercial seeds, just in a Ziploc bag. I've closed each seed packet with a paper clip in the refrigerator. And that they want to be cool and dry. The refrigerator is a very dry place. You have that pan underneath it to collect the water that drips out of it. Ziploc bags are not airtight. They allow some air movement, but they keep moisture from getting into the seed pack. They also keep it together. One whole shelf in the refrigerator is seed packets. It gets messy. If you put them in Ziploc bags, it's easier to find them.
I'm even lazier when it comes to saving seed. I will wait for the plants to have attracted all the pollinators and beneficials. It is like the onion flower, beautiful flower. And until they start dwindling in numbers, what I will then do is snip off the entire flower into a big paper bag and put all those onion flowers in one paper bag, as long as it's all the same variety. I know what variety it is. And I'll just close up that paper bag, put it in a cool spot, usually in my office, as Debbie could attest to, and wait. That's all. The seed will fall to the bottom of the bag, and then come fall, you can plant those seeds.
That's true. You can also plant the seeds with the flower parts, but your spacing becomes difficult. There are going to be a lot of seeds in one flower head. But if you have a few pieces of the flower with it, it's not going to hurt anything.
Boy, you brought up a scenic bypass for me about cleaning popcorn. I like to grow popcorn, and popcorn is a fun crop to grow. And it turns out most people think popcorn comes in a bag. No, there's a plant called popcorn that you grow, and it's much tastier than the styrofoam pieces that you buy or get at a theater. There's heirloom varieties of popcorn that are so tasty and crunchy, you'll think you're not eating popcorn, but that is the real popcorn. But it needs to be cleaned first. You husk it off the cob, take the husks off, shell the cob with a little tool that they sell for cleaning popcorn called the little stripper. And I let that fall into something like a kitty litter bag. What I usually use, though, is my wife's turkey roasting pan. And let it fall into that. And then to clean it, because there is all that frass around, I will put it again, don't tell her, in her nylon bag, and the popcorn doesn't fall out, and you can go outside and shake the bag around and watch all the frass fly away.
Similar to the fan idea.
Where is the best place to store seed?
Well, it needs to be cool and dry, and for me, the refrigerator is the only secure place. The garage, is cool in winter, but is it dry? And in summer, it's not cool. In the house stays pretty even temperatured, but not always so dry. To me, the refrigerator is the easiest to know that I have climate control.
I share my living space with seed. It's in a cool, dry place. If I'm cool and dry inside, the seed's going to be happy there too.
Right. The rule of thumb is that you can grow seeds for 2 years. They're good for 2 years. So when you buy seeds in a packet, it's going to say on it packed for, if you bought them today for full price at a store, it should say packed for 2023, which means that it's guaranteed to germinate through December of 2023. So if you store it correctly, you should be able to get a crop out of it, and maybe even 25. If you're not sure, you do a germination test. So you take I've done it with paper towels. Fred uses coffee filters. Mm-hmm. I didn't bring one. Okay, this is my paper towel. I lay the seeds, fold it in half.
You gonna make an airplane? No.
Lay the seeds on the fold. I do 10 because it really makes the math easy. Fold it up. Make a cigar out of it.
You're talented to do that with a microphone in your hand.
I got skills, man. Yeah. Moisten it. Make sure it's wet all the way through. Put a rubber band or something around it and stand it up so the fold is up in the air. In a container, glass container, a mug,
your hospital container. Implement.
And cover the top. You want it to stay moist. And then you check it every day. If it says it's going to germinate in 7 days, you could maybe let it go 2 days. But you want to make sure it does not dry out. A seed that has gotten wet, once it dries, it's dead. So you do not want it to dry out. That's why it needs to be covered with plastic and checked daily for moisture. And then you start checking it and you open it up this way. And the beauty of standing it up in the container is the roots are going to grow down. They grow toward gravity. And so you can tell which seed has germinated. And so after the 7 days have gone by, you open it up and see how many have germinated. If all 10 germinated, you got 100% germination, go ahead and plant them. And you can use these. You can just cut them apart and plant them in the ground. They'll be stuck to the paper towel or the coffee filter, but they will still work.
I like the way how you point to the woman holding the sign, 0 minutes left, and you keep talking.
Of course.
All right. You're not a master gardener.
Act now, apologize later.
That's okay. All right. We're going to finish up with one tip. And that is to get your pepper seeds to germinate quicker. When you start pepper seeds in February or January, you know how long it takes pepper seeds to germinate? It's like 3 weeks. That's a long time. Cut that in half for us.
Soak those pepper seeds in hydrogen peroxide for 10 minutes. Hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. It's water with an extra oxygen. I don't know the science behind it. I was just frustrated. My students were frustrated. I went to, Google and said, how do I fix this? And we're in school. We can experiment. So we did, and it worked.
Ladies and gentlemen, Debbie Flower, America's favorite retired college horticulture professor.
We're going to clean up, and we'll be at that first tent right there.